All right, so I guess we can get started. Hello everyone, I am Chaitanya. Welcome to this session on VMM upgrade and planning. I'm a program, just a little bit about myself. I'm a program manager on the SC VMM team. I'm responsible for setup, library, and a few other components. Can I get a quick raise of hands on how many of you are, kind of just to get a quick sense of how many of you are using VMM in your production right now? And some of you have probably already been to other VMM talks today. Right, okay. I was going through just making sure the demos work, and about a couple of hours back, and I thought it would be cool to actually start with the end in mind. So I would actually start there. This is what we're going to do. This is our last demo of the day, the third one. But I was there, so I thought I'll start here. What I'm going to show you here right now is one of the most important key investments we have done in setup for 2012. A lot of you have asked for VMM server is a more key component too in most of your environments, and you have asked for it to be highly available. We have done that. Now you can actually run VMM service or VMM server as a highly available server. That's what I'm going to show you right here. So this is the standard cluster Hyper-V cluster manager. I'm running VMM on 2 nodes on a 2-node cluster here. You can, if I click on the thing, I can see that it's currently being owned by a machine, Gariki-Class VM1, and it has two owners, VM1 and VM2. I'm going to start. This is a really kind of a teaser kind of a demo. I'm going to start and move the service. So somehow the VM failed, service app failed, crashed, whatever. Clustering is going to move it to the other node. I'm going to start there. Keep an eye on this one. So you see that this thing got reconnected or disconnected really, and the cluster service has come up, online pending. So in this case, both the VMM servers, one is on this machine here, and other is here, are connecting to the clustered service. And as soon as the clustered service is back up just now, which it did, on the next reconnect attempt, they are going to connect to the service. So this is where we are going to get by the end of this presentation. You will know all the things that you need to do in your current VMM deployments to actually get from where you are to here, if that's what your end goal is. You can still run VMM as a non-clustered service. That's not a problem at all. Just that this is a good way of doing things. There is about 30-second lag between reconnection attempts. So it's going to connect now any second. There you go, second attempt, and there you go. So I didn't change anything, just that the cluster service, I'm connecting both the consoles in both the machines to the clustered service, and as soon as the cluster service is up, it started standard cluster thing. Okay, so let me clean up these machines so that we can. So this is what we'll do in the last demo. Now this is a backup for me. You've kind of seen this. So if one of the other 3 demos fails, then you've already seen it. That's my first tip of the day. When you actually install or upgrade from in your environments, just test it out, test it on your test machines, blow it up. You'll learn a lot more. I'm just going to clean up both of these machines. I'll start uninstalls and then we'll. Okay, remove. This is the second node of the cluster. I'm removing from here. I'm going to remove on this machine too. Uninstall would fail for what? By the way, this is a build from about a week back. So this is all real code. Crap. Uninstall is failing for whatever reason. Okay. I've got a backup thing. I'm going to shut down all these VMs. I've got another backup cluster. I'll start there. Let me try those one more time. Okay. Okay. Let's switch back. So that was the last demo. Well, next time maybe it might not work, so you've seen it. My objectives for this session is really to empower you guys with all the new things that we have done in VMM 2012. Not just that installing, but we put up a lot of bits. We install a lot of components on the VMM server now to support all the scenarios that we are. I want you guys to have a brief understanding of exactly why we do each of those components, why we leave some AFI packages, or maybe why we install a SRS component or a storage management component on the server. Then what I want you guys to get out of it is, when you walk out of here, you need to have a clear understanding of two things. One, how do you set up a clean install of VMM 2012 in your lab or wherever? Two, if you already have your VMM 2008 R2 environments, how do you upgrade from there to 2012? You have already been, some of you have been to a few other presentations. You have already seen this deck. In this release, we are doing so many different things, new things, that comparing it to R2 is sometimes not even relevant. It's a completely different new product, really. Well, not really, but for the most part. So how it's important in our conversation now is that to support each of these features, whether it be deploying a physical bare metal machine or deploying a service with AFI packages in it, setup ends up doing, there are certain things that setup has to do, leave some bits here, leave some bits there, install some components. So when we talk through the requirements or all the things that we do in setup, you will be able to correlate that with the other future discussions you had, whether it's in Stephen's sessions or Carmen sessions. For example, storage management. On the VMM server, we install SMIS provider automatically for you that talks to the arrays when you actually when you end up managing storage. We'll talk a lot more about those. So here is my best slide of this deck. I just like architecture slides for whatever reason. So here on the top part of the slide, you see all the standard components, VMM server components. Most of these are were already existing in 2008 R2. There are your library servers where you have your ISOs, all your VHD images and whatever. Then there are still your VMM consoles which connect to the server. Not much has changed there. Self-service portal, we still currently support the SSP2. So in the box, self-service portal will still be there when we ship. But then there is another new self-service portal called Concero, which is our next generation self-service portal for VMM. It lets you manage a little. It lets you do a little more than that. It's your window into multiple VMM server environments as well as into public clouds, specifically Windows Azure. There was a talk about that just a while ago. And then there is a SQL Server. I want to kind of say here that SQL Server compared to R2. In R2, we were installing SQL Express for you if you wanted to. In this release, we actually mandate that you have a SQL Server installed elsewhere or on the same machine, external to us. And then the key component, HAVMM, this is the one that's changed significantly. Now, as you have seen, I was showing you before with 2 VMM servers that were running a clustered service. So this is attached to SAN, of course, otherwise that they wouldn't be highly available otherwise. On the bottom part of the slide are all the platforms or all the hosts and platforms that we support. Earlier, we were supporting Hyper-V and ESX. We still do both of them, of course. And in this version, we've added Citrix, support for Citrix Xen servers. VMware, we still talk through their vCenter. That's important to know because that's what provides us the API to talk to. In Citrix case, though, if you've been to Carmen session, you've already seen that. We directly talk to the hypervisor, directly to the Xen server machines. We don't need to talk to the Xen Center or the management software in the middle. So we treat them more or less just like Hyper-V servers. You can do a few more things on Hyper-V servers, like make clusters out of servers directly that you can't do with Citrix. But other than that, we manage the agents on Citrix just like we do with Hyper-V servers. Then there is WSUS and WDS. These are components that are required only if you are interested, if you are leveraging those functionality. WSUS for doing host patching. That's a new functionality in 2012. And you need WDS if you're doing PXE server deployments or physical server deployments from bare metal machines. Moving on. What are the platforms that we support for VMM? What are the requirements for all the components that are in VMM? For VMM server, in general, for everything, it's N-2. So given that Hyper-V is currently in Windows 2008 R2 SP1, so the 2 versions that we support for everything almost is R2 SP1 and R2. So you can see that for VMM server, it's R2 SP1 and R2. Same for HAVMM server. Database, again, same last 2 versions. 2008 R2, 2008 R2 SP, 2008 SP2 for SQL Server. Like I said before, key thing is we've dropped support for SQL Express. If you've used our product before, you've known that we used to carry those bits in SQL Express bits in our CD before. There were a bunch of issues about just the size of the CD and issues with deploying SQL itself. So we kind of dropped that. But typically in all of our data centers, there is SQL somewhere, so we depend on, that's a prerequisite for us, that you have some SQL. VMM console, again, same platform requirements as for server. Doesn't matter, either different, local or remote. I'll talk about that too. VMM console, all platforms that server, you can install server on, you can install console, of course. And you can install on Windows 7, 32 and 64 bits. Self-service portal, again, same platform, same everything. So really key thing is, if you're running the latest versions of Windows, N-1, and our support is N-2, which is the current latest version and the version before that, then you're good to go. Library servers, again, more or less the same, the last 2 versions, plus it's not here, but for host management, we do support N-3 versions for hosts. So Windows Server 2008 SP2, we support that as host, as adding them as host machines. So we do the support using the same machines as library servers also. So it's really N-3 for libraries and hosts, N-2 for everything else. Software that needs to be pre-installed. When we do a demo, I'll actually show you share that I have, and I'll show you a bunch of software that I have there, because that's all you need. In reality, all you need is just Wake. If you are running on the latest Windows servers, then all you need is Wake 2.2.0. If you have Wake 1.0 pre-installed on the machines, you would have to uninstall it manually. We don't automatically do it. You have to uninstall it, reinstall Wake, and proceed with it. So that's really the only pre-requirement, because .NET is pre-enabled. If it's not enabled, we enable it automatically during installing VMM. It comes in 2008 R2 anyway. PowerShell is, I think it's by default enabled, same with WinRM. So the only requirement for setting up VMM 2012 is Wake. Other pre-install software, like I said, you need SQL somewhere, either remote on the same machine where you want to install VMM, or on a remote SQL server. Now, I have said that setup ends up deploying bits, either installing it or just leaving packages on the VMM server to support different scenarios. For bare metal provisioning, we end up using, we need the connection to WSUS server. For patching, we need, for bare metal, we need the Pixie server connection. For WSUS, for patching, we need WSUS. For Pro, like you were doing in R2, we still need the System Center Ops Manager connection. What we've done there is, in the old version, in R2, 2008 R2 VMM, you had to install VMM agents and OM agents on both machines that are running VMM and OM. We have significantly changed that and simplified it. That it's just one wizard now. You just go through one wizard and it's all taken care of. So it's been simplified. Again, for more requirements, if you are managing Citrix Zen servers, there is a small additional step you need to do. Citrix has written a provider for us, and they made it available on their website. I believe it's for free. You need to go out of band, and install that on Citrix Zen server host machines, because that's really for us our agent on there. So once you have installed that agent on the Citrix host machines, then we talk to it directly. First, I'm not sure if storage session is already done, but it's done. So we manage storage. So again, coming back, in R2 you used to, if you wanted a VM that's attached to a LUN, you had to go and provision a LUN, surface it to all the host machines in your cluster. Then you have to then create a VM and then point to that LUN. In this version, you can do all of that through VMM. You just give a whole storage array to VMM. It will manage that. You create a LUN, and then we automatically surface that LUN to all the cluster nodes. And when you go to create a VM or a service, that LUN is available for you. For that, the impact on setup is that we install a component. We've worked with Windows storage team, and they developed a component for us. And we are the only, as far as I know, we are the only shipped vehicle for that component. So we install the SMIS component on the VMM server machine. We do it automatically. You don't need to do anything. I just want you to be aware of that. Currently, we've tested and we completely support EMC and NetApp in-house. We've tested with other things, but there are other vendors that are supporting it, and talks are ongoing, but our official support is EMC and NetApp. Load balancer integration, again, the same storage provider model, or the same provider model as we do with storage. F5, Citrix, and Brocade have put out their custom providers, so we use that. This is something that needs to, so you need, for setup, really what this means is if you are actually going to add F5 load balancers into VMM, you need to go to F5 site, get that load balancer down. We'll have help files or help links in our setup help guide, and download and install on the VMM server box. We don't do that for you because we are not sure what load balancers you have. It could even be custom load balancers. So, for power management, we talk to host machines using standards as Smash, IPMI. You don't need to do anything for that. This is just informational purpose. But if you are actually talking to, if you have some other custom provider, then you would have to install that on the VM server just like you would for the load balancers, for the custom load balancers. So those were the prerequisites or things you would have to do. Then there are other redistributable packages or software components that during install we leave them on the VM server. That is to enable certain scenarios. For example, when you do server deployment, you need an app package. We put out a default app package for the pet shop app that we kind of, it's an example template kind of a thing. So, and we install some SQL management objects on the server. So SQL DAG packages, Windows IIS web deploy toolkit that is actually for server API. Server API has a dependency on web deploy, so we have web deploy. We leave those bits of web deploy and server API agents on the server. Again, these are nothing you have to do. You just have to be aware about that. Setup improvements. Now, those are all the new features that we did. As far as improvements go, as I've shown you before, the key thing, the biggest investment we've done is made setup a highly available thing. Have either of you guys kind of asked for it before? Maybe you can just raise your hand. I've heard customers actually asking for highly available servers. So there you have it. What it does for you is in the past, if the host goes down, even if you had VM running in a VM, if the host goes down, clustering can move it around. But if the OS or the VM or the service itself crashes, there was no workaround that. So if you run it as a highly available service, then you are guarded against that. Another thing is that for highly available thing, this is the requirement. Maybe I should back up a little bit. In R2 version or in all of our previous versions, whenever you install VMM server on a machine, that install is technically tied to that machine. There are certain encryption things that happen that are tied to that machine's identity. When we have to do live VMM service and the service has to move from machine to machine, we cannot have that anymore. We cannot tie a VMM installation to a particular machine. So what we did, so there were a couple of options for us. We could store those keys, those encryption keys, in a couple of different places, like maybe in the SQL or some other place. We've decided to actually put them on AD. Typically, your AD is secure enough. If somebody hacks into your AD, then you've got bigger problems. But AD is secure enough. So we need a container on AD. When we do the demo, I'll show you what I mean. We need a container on AD. Where we could actually store these keys. VMM console, high availability for VMM console. Really, nothing special here. Earlier, when we had a single core install of VMM, your console was connecting to that VMM server, whether it be local host or giving the host name. Now you want your console, if you want your connection to be persistent across VMM failures or failovers, you want to connect to the HAVM service. That's pretty much it. As far as best practices go, if you want your VM service to be completely highly available, just having VM service run as HA will guard you against VM server crashes. But if your SQL goes down and you're using local SQL or the machine goes down, then you're toast. So you want your SQL to be running on a HA in HA mode too. Same with your library servers. You don't want all your ISOs and all of them vanishing someday. So you want to run them in highly available file servers. Typically, again, you don't want everything to be running in the same cluster because it's cluster-wide failures. If that happens, then again, it's another single point of failure. So you want things to be run as distributed as you can, but that's just a recommendation. So here is how it works. Let's say you're doing a fresh, clean install of highly available VMM. In this picture, you can see that there is a node 1 and node 2, which are both talking to which are really clustered machines. There is a VM, either a physical host machine cluster or a VM cluster, which has typically shared storage. It needs to. Then you install the prerequisites. Like I said, only prerequisite is really, if you're running the latest versions, Wake 2.0. And then try to install VMM on it. Our setup recognizes that it's running on a clustered node, and it will ask you, I see that this is a clustered machine. Do you want to install VMM as highly available service? You can still opt no. You can actually install, even on a clustered machine, you can opt to install a standalone VMM server. That's just because some of our customers, they have only clusters. So whether they want to install VMM highly available or not, they don't have a choice. They just have a clustered machine. So, but even if you are actually running HA in clustered mode, install HA in clustered mode, but you have only one server, that's fine. So let's say you say, yes, I want to install this HA VM. We install bits, and we create VM database. We create a cluster resources with the cluster service name. So during the wizard, you'll see you provide a cluster name for the service, and we save the encryption keys in AD. So one thing you have to do, if you are not an AD admin, which typically everybody is not, all VM admins are not AD admins. If that's true, then you would have to talk to your AD admin beforehand and get a container where you could write to it. Then when you go to the second node and try to install VMM, it will recognize that on the same cluster that is part of this, on the cluster that is running on this machine, there is already a VMM installed, and it will ask you to be, do you want me to add as a second node on the cluster? If you say yes, we will install that, and this will become the passive node. And if for whatever reason the active node goes down, then this would then clustering service. We are not doing anything special here. It's a standard clustered service. So clustering will take care of moving service over from one node to another node. All right, so let's switch back to demo mode, and let's see what we can do with it, because the whole thing went down before. So I'm going to start up another. I'm going to do a little bit of repair, and then I'll start up these machines, and we'll start installing VMM. So just so you know, this is I have a host machine on which I have about 6 VMs, which are set up as 2 clusters. Connect via console. Yes. That one is good. Connect to this one. Oh, it's clustered VM4. So what I'm going to do, this is clustered VM4, this is clustered VM3, and this is clustered VM4. I'm going to use these 2 machines to create my VMM cluster. Connect. But I might have VMM already on there too. So if there is, then I'll have to uninstall it. Let's connect once, and hopefully we don't have to connect again in this demo. You can just switch around here. Okay. Let me close some of these. AD VM1, VM2, don't need it, VM1. Okay, let's just start with this one. Okay. Oh, this already has VMM. So I guess I'll have to clean up these machines. Give me 1 second. VM4 probably also has VMM. It does. Please don't fail this time. This is my backup cluster. I don't want this to fail. Well, I don't want that to fail either. Remove. Okay. I'm going to wait on this for a few seconds just to make sure it's actually going to go through. Then I will uninstall VM on the other node. Then we can start installing it. It's good in a way that you're actually seeing not just installing, but actually uninstalling it and cleaning it up. So I guess that's fine. If this passes, I'm going to remove VMM on the other node, and then we'll continue with the slide deck. We'll come back to both the demos. Okay. Let's see that we got rid of that one first on 4. Yes.
If you have Virtual Center VMware in a federated mode where it's got up to 10 Virtual Center servers kind of connected in a federated model, how does SCVVM see that?
You would VC through virtual center. So would you be in federated mode? Would it be that there is one vCenter or virtual center that's the key thing?
Now, if you log in with the Virtual Center client, any of the servers that are federated, you'll see all of them in the single pane of glass.
Oh, is it? Then I guess they're all managed from one vCenter.
No, they're not managed. They're all independent, but you can see them from your client. Link mode, yeah.
So in link mode, each ESX host is still only running by one vCenter. So you still have to register each
Okay.
and import host from the
So would it be all vCenters at the same time or one at a time? vCenter at a time. Yeah, okay. So that went uninstalling on the other node went fine. Let's uninstall it from this one. Yes. Okay. All right. Okay, when this is done, we'll start installing on both the machines at the same time. Next time when we come to the demo mode. Let's continue with the slide deck. So, more setup improvements. One of the things that we have done this time is when you install VMM, you could click on the box that says get latest VMM updates, and it will get the connect to WSUS and get whatever, if there are any updates pushed out by VMM, it will get them up before you install VMM. Then chained installation. In the last release, you had to install each component at a time. You had to go back to the flash screen and click install for server, for console and things. In this version, you could install multiple things at the same time. So you don't have to go back to the flash screen again and again. More improvements, setup. In the last version, once if you're installing eval versions, there was no way to go from there to full version. You would have to uninstall it and reinstall. In this version, you can just type the key and go from eval to license versions. Same thing with HAVMM, but except that in the HA case, you would have to do that on only one machine. You don't need to provide license on all the machines. Now upgrading. So that was all clean installation of 2012. Now, from now on, most of the discussion will be on upgrade from your current version of R2. If you are on R2, we only support N-1 for VMM servers, which means if you are on either 2008 or 2007 VMM, you cannot directly come from there to 2012. You would have to go from there. Just the server machine, not all the hosts. Just the server machine, VMM server has to go from. Only thing we support is VMM 2008 R2 SP1 to 2012. So if you have 2008 machines, VMM server machines, you'd have to upgrade that particular machine to SP1 and then from there to 2012. No support for directly upgrading from 2007. We've already talked. And we've kind of touched on this too. On the old versions, you probably have Wake 1.0, we needed that. So when you're adding those machines as servers, then you'd have to uninstall it manually. During uninstalling VMM 2008, or during upgrade, we don't uninstall Wake automatically because of ULI issues and things. You would have to uninstall Wake 1.0, install 2.0, and then continue. Again, DKIM, for our highly available mode, if you are installing VMM in HM mode, we need a DKIM group just so we can store the keys in there. And by the way, you don't need to have actually a container. If you are an AD admin, you can just type in a container name and we create it. Typically, our admin is not an AD admin. In that case, you will have to ask them to give you a container. Databases, you would have to come to 2008 or 2008 SP2. And if you are using, if you are on VMM 2008 R2 and you are using 2005 or SQL Express, upgrade path really is to either uninstall or make a copy of the database, move it to 2008 SQL Server somewhere else or on the VMM server, either remote or locally, and then use the database while installing. I'll show, and there's a animation that I'll show you. Alternately, to upgrading, so alternately you could upgrade your SQL Server by itself and then copy the database from your R2 version of VMM, which is either SQL 2005 or SQL Express, move the database to the new 2008 database, to the 2008 server and point us to that. So if you were using 2005 SQL, then you would take a backup and move that database to SQL 2008 plus. Once that is done, you would either install VMM as standalone or highly available, and during installation, you point us to the database. During upgrade, what we'll do is we'll take the database, we'll upgrade all the objects in it so that they work back with 2012. So RTM versions, only thing we support is VMM 2008 R2 SP1 to VMM 2012. So again, if your host were running 2008 R2, you would have to upgrade that server machine only to R2 SP1. In place upgrade. So there are really two types of upgrade. One is in place. What we call in place is you have a VMM server, you take your 2012 bits to that machine, and you want to install directly on that machine. That's in place. You don't want to uninstall your VMM. That's called in place. You're not taking VMM 2008 R2 out of it first. Another thing you can do is uninstall it, retain the database, then take the database to either any of your other machines or actually to the same machine, and then install and point to the database. So that's called database upgrade, where typically you would have to do database upgrade if you are actually changing SQL, because there's no way you could actually install 2012 on a SQL 2005 box. So in that case, you would have to uninstall it, move the database to 2008, and then install from the same machine and point to that. Another thing in the current version, in the current build, like I said before, in all of our previous versions, when you install VMM on a machine, that installation is tied to that machine because of encryption stuff. So in our current build, which I was actually demoing, that is valid, which means that if you uninstall, if you had 2008 on a machine and you uninstall it, you had to install VMM from that machine. But we are taking that block off, which means you lose some. So what you could do is you could uninstall, save the database, move it to 2008, go to a completely different machine, and still point to the database and use it. You would lose some things because when we stored encryption keys in the database, we use this machine's identity. You would lose those passwords and templates, things like that. For which is why we were actually blocking you before in our internal builds. But we've heard from customers in CTP and beta that sometimes it's okay to actually lose those templates. They would rather be able to move the server from the machine on which 2008 was installed to some other machine, maybe a bulkier one, a bigger machine, and use the same database still. And one more thing. How many of you have significant investment in 2008 R2, which means the only reason you would want to upgrade is there are things that you don't want to lose, like custom properties on host machines, custom properties on VSDs, templates, other objects, or service templates. If you don't care about them, or you have not too many significant investments that you want to start fresh, then you never have to worry about upgrade. So do any of you have significant investments that you don't want to lose those custom properties? Nobody? We are doing a lot of work to actually support it. We know that there are a lot of customers who actually save a ton of things in custom properties. You don't want to lose all of it. Host group structures and things like that. Okay, so this is the in-place upgrade where you already have 2008 R2 in this slide using a 2008 R2 SP1 database. To upgrade to 2012, you need DKM because you want to install a VM as clustered service. So you get another node from somewhere. You install 2012 predict on both the nodes. Again, predicts are really vague. That's all. For the most part, if you are running the latest version of 2008 R2. Then you do an in-place upgrade of the machine which was running 2008 R2. It will upgrade that server and the database to 2012, and it will create a cluster resource just like before. So only change really here is you already had a VMM server, and you are using that machine to upgrade it instead of starting fresh. Then the second node is really just the same as a clean install. So you install on the second node, it will be added to the cluster. So when do you need to do database upgrade? Like I was telling you before, only time you need to do database upgrade as opposed to in-place upgrade. It's a little bit confusing. So really there are two types of upgrade. One is in-place upgrade where you don't want to uninstall before you install 2012. So you want to use the same machine. Without uninstalling, you just want that to be upgraded to 2012. The other one is database install where you database upgrade where you uninstall it, save the database, then install it. So when do you really want to do database upgrade? Really when you are actually using either SQL Express or SQL 2005 because you would have to move the database in that case. What do you need to do? We've talked about it a bunch of times. Uninstall VMM, retain database, migrate database over to a supported SQL, start your installation on same node or in the future builds another node and point to the database that you've copied over. All right, demo. Okay, so both of these machines, I'm going to move cluster VM3 to the left top and cluster VM4 to the right bottom. So we can probably work on them more or less at the same time. Okay, let's get started. By the way, just a quick thing. The way I have set it up is I have cluster VM3 and VM4 that I want to use for VMM server. Then I have my AD and domain controllers and SQL on a machine that I named ADVM1. So which is, I haven't connected to it, I guess. Let's connect to that too. Repair, no. Connect to a console. Not running, oh, okay. ADVM1. Where did the machine go? I am going to log in directly to the. What I'll do is I'll directly connect to my host machine. See what's happening there. Okay, exit. Okay, ADVM1 is not here anymore. What happened to it? Did I delete it somehow? Okay. That's fine. We can connect to ADVM2. VM3 is running. Connect. I thought we could not uninstall on VM3. It is clean. Okay. Oh no, we were able to. Okay. Cluster VM3. Okay, let's try starting installing 2008 on here, 2012 on this machine. So this is what I was saying before. I have a share where all the software that is really required for a whole install is there, and all I need is VM 2012, which is this. Then you don't need this because I am emulating a SAN using a iSCSI target. You don't need that. SQL again you don't need. You probably already have installed. So the only thing that you need is Wake. Let's install 2012. Account, certain credentials. So I'm not logged in as domain account. Log off. Oops. Okay. No, well, this is logging in. Let's see what happened to AD machine. AD, I hope you can connect to ADVM2. That was on a VM network. Let's see. Clustered VM1, VM3 is using. So when I set it up 3 of these at a time. So I'm just making sure that both of these machines can talk to the or on the same network, my network for VMs. And VM2 is hopefully on the same virtual network. It is, so I think they should be able to talk. Let's see. Okay. So I want to install VMM here. Also, let's make sure that the cluster service is running on these machines. In this case, clustered VM3 and clustered VM4 should be running as a cluster. Let's check that. And that cluster is okay actually. Yep, these machines are clustered, VM3 and VM4. That's fine, there is a service, cluster service down, but that's okay, we'll install a new service. Okay, so you read all through the EULA and you click next. I want to install VM server. So, like I showed in the deck before, this is where we recognize that this machine is part of a cluster and we say, do you want to install VMM as a highly available service? You can either say yes or no. Because we want to do HAS VMM service, I'll say yes. And it crashed, went back. Oh, it's probably because it's trying to see the other service. Highly is already installed. No. Okay. Why is it already installed? VM3. Delete. I'm going to delete this service because this is what's making it look like it's already installed. Okay. Cross your fingers now. Okay, it went through. But it did not ask me. I'm going to start the process again. This is a really hot demo. You are seeing a lot of failures, and this could happen in your environments and what you need to do. So here is where it's saying that setup is running on a clustered node. Would you like to install VMM as a highly available service? You want to say yes. Next, whatever. You can change the install location. I'm just going to leave the default. We do a bunch of checks here. In this check, it's saying that you don't have enough memory, but that's fine. I'm going to go ahead. And I have my SQL on the same machine that I have AD on, which is AD VM2. Now I'm going to hope that it's going to be able to talk to it because I didn't set them up properly. Not properly. I didn't mean that machine to be used for this cluster, but let's see. SQL already exists. Okay, I'm going to create a new database. TechEd demo 3. I must have already done at least 2 of those before. Okay, so here it's asking you for a name for the cluster service. I'm going to say HAVMM TechEd service 1. Click next. So this is the name that will be configured as a cluster VMM cluster service. So when you connect your consoles, you want to connect to this name, which will really provide an indirection to either of the nodes that's currently active. It's going to take a little while because it's talking to the remote server. And okay, so you want to install it as let me check what is the name of my connect. So my domain name was let me see. Garki/user1. So either that or it's Garki2. Okay. Now this is the thing. These machines are connected to another domain. We're connected to Garki1. Now this might work, might not. Actually, let me make sure. This is connected to Garki. Okay, this is on Garki2, so maybe that's fine. So here is where you want to provide the DKIM group. So I have DKIM So if you could manage your own AD or actually for your AD admins, what they need to do is they need to go to your domain space, create a new container, a new object of type container, which is where we'll place all the keys. I have created one of those before. See container name equal to vmm2. This is not empty. Okay. Is this empty? Okay. So I'll use this container. So this is the string that we look for. This is the name. This is the identifying name for this container. Hopefully copy paste works, otherwise I would have to type that in. Okay, all right. Cn equal to SCVMM DC equal to K2 DC equal to com. So again, like I said before, you don't need to create it. Either you need to be able to create, if the one who is installing VMM has access to create the directory, you don't need to pre-create it. Next. I skipped something. So it's showing all the default ports. You can change your port selection. This was more or less same. Another thing, library. In 2008 R2, there was a default library always. For HAVMM, we don't have a default library because our recommendation really is to add a clustered file server or a highly available share as a library server. So we don't add anything by default. You'll have to do that after you have VMM installed. Okay, VM is being installed on this. Let's go back to the slide deck and we'll come back to install VMM on the second node. Let's actually make sure the second node is up and good to go before we do that, which is VM4. Okay, I want to connect as the same user. How am I connected as? Oops, I'm connected as an admin. Let me log off. User 1. Okay, we can leave that on. We'll come back and we'll install this cluster node 4 as the second node for the VM server. If we have time, I'll show you what happens in AD and DNS as well when we create this. Oh, okay. Well, this is up. Okay. Okay. This, by the way, installation typically takes about 5 minutes. So, come back to slide deck. We did this already, didn't we? Okay. So we already kind of covered this upgrading console. Well, not really. So upgrading console, you could have your consoles on different machines, not just the servers. So you would have to upgrade your VMM console also to the 2012 version. So you would have to either go to that machine and plop the CD in there and say upgrade this console to 2012. For self-service portal, you really have to uninstall 2008 R2 and reinstall 2012, just the SSP part. Host agents, like I actually said before, only for the server we support N-1, which is you need to be R2SP1 VMM to upgrade to 2012. For all your host machines, so if you are actually running only VMM 2008 R2, not R2SP1, you don't have to touch all of your host machines. You just take your VMM server, just upgrade that to R2SP1, and then from there to 2012. All your host machines will still be added into 2012 SP1 or 2012. And once they are added, you could upgrade all the agents in one shot. We don't support vCenter versions lower than 4.1, ESX hosts lower than 3.5. I'll show you in the next slide where actually we show you these as warning messages that we're going to drop off these host machines. Do you want to continue and things? So here is that screen. There are two parts to it. The red part, really, the cross part says that you cannot go any further. You're blocked. Typically, the reason for that is you are not pointing us to a supported SQL version, or if you're doing an in-place upgrade, your SQL is on that machine or the one that's being used by your current VMM is an older version of SQL. Everything else is typically informational message, either that we are dropping hosts or that we are not actually adding a default library server in this case, and some more informational message on the help content side. Things you need to do after upgrading server. So all you have done until now is upgraded or created a fresh VMM server. Let's say you upgraded your 2008 R2 VMM server to 2012 server. One thing you need to do now is all your hosts that are under management, we bring them all in, but they all have old agents or 2008 R2 agents. You need to update all of them. You could multi-select and right-click and say upgrade these agents. Same thing goes with library servers, because library server agent is really the same as our host agent. So you could, in fact, when you upgrade, you could say that already go ahead and install newer agents on all the machines. After reassociation, they all need updating. You can do multi-select and add update. DMZ host is one case where we do bring the hosts in, but we can't talk to it, so they are in needs attention or access denied state. You would really have to remove the host and add the host back in. The reason for that is that there are certificates involved and security things that tie that to the old VMM installation, and we really can't upgrade them. You would have to take them off and bring them back in. Library agents, like I said, nothing special. For us, library and host agents are pretty much the same. In fact, the code base is the same code base that does a few more things for library or a few different things for library. So for library servers, they'll show up in the UI. You'll just have to say upgrade my agent to the new version. Until you do that, the objects on those libraries are partly usable. They are not really usable. We'll say that they'll all show up kind of missing, and we ask you to actually upgrade it. HAVM library considerations. Like I said before, we don't install a default library share. So once you have HAVM, you would have to pre-provision or post-provision a file server, HA file server, add it as a library server. Now, what about all the content that was sitting on your library servers before? We don't lose any of it. We don't delete any of it. Just kidding. So that is actually why we actually bring your old server. So if you were on R2, the reason for us, and if you're on R2 and you move directly from R2 to HAVM server, we do bring your library server. Like I said before, that we don't automatically install HA server, but actually your old library servers, we bring them in. The reason is we don't want you to kind of think that all that content is gone. That's there, but our recommendation is move that content out of there. If you have VMs, you could redeploy them onto host machines and then back to a highly available file server. ISOs, VSDs, you could do off-band, copy them onto a highly available file server. Only thing you would really lose are OS profiles and hardware profiles. Even templates that you have will be available in your HAVM server. Only thing you lose is OS and hardware profiles, and currently there's not really a good solution. If you typically you don't have a lot of OS and hardware profiles compared to templates. You really have to recreate them. That's the only. Okay, so this is our last demo, which actually we did before we started the presentation. So let's get back to the demo mode and see if we can do what we did in the first few minutes again. Okay, so you can all see it. VM server installation has successfully completed on the main node. So now let's see. Let me close this thing. We don't need this here. Before we connect, I want to show you a few things. So remember, I actually deleted the HA service before. We ended up creating that HAVM. So this is the service name for it. If you click on the service, it will actually currently show you that there is only one owner. There's only one node really, which is true. So let's add another VM to this cluster and see what happens. And by the way, while we're doing that, let me show you what actually happens in AD. Actually, let me first install it on the second node, then I'll show you what happens in AD. Okay, so this is, here is the name, cluster VM4, which I want to add as another 10.0.0.1. Is that where I have my software? I hope so. Oh, it's here somewhere. Okay, fine. Let me make sure I'm actually installing the same build, because I might have different builds on different shares and I don't want to install different builds. Services, not CPL. So here is how you can actually check what build you are running on your VM server. So this is build number 22101. Where did I install it from? Okay, 2.1. Okay, the same thing. Software, CD layout. Okay, same build. We shouldn't get into trouble with that. So now I'm installing it on a clustered machine, and the same cluster has a HAVM service running already. So when you read the EULA again, because it's fun to read EULAs, and click on server, VM server, we'll recognize that highly available VMM is already installed on this cluster. Would you like to add this server as a node to this installation, which is what we want to do. So here is where you could actually say, I really want to install another VM server on this machine, and you could say no, and you could install a different VM server. But we want to add it as a second node for that cluster that we created before, for the clustered service that we created before. And we do that, click next. Now, when we did it the first time around, we had to provide a bunch of things like SQL information and all that. we don't need to do any of that now. So when we did it the first time around, we had to provide where SQL is because we have to create a database. I'll show you that too when we go to the AD mission. Right now, we are not doing any of that. We already have a VMM database in the SQL sitting. We already have it running as a service. We are just adding this node to that service. If you are not a SQL admin, or if you actually, whoever is installing the service doesn't have write access on the SQL database, then you could actually provide, or your SQL admin would have to come and provide write access to that database. But typically that's not true. They would probably give you access to that database. So you don't need to change anything there. You do need to give the password for, so that you can authenticate yourself to add to the service. You don't want anybody else, just some random guy coming and adding them as another node to your service. Click next. You don't need to do any of this. In fact, in the current build, there is a bug where actually we are getting rid of some of these pages because you can't really change anything. There are actually just 2 pages in there that you don't need to see. So the wizard will be smaller. Okay, while this is happening, so this is the last demo, so we've got some time, I think. That's fine. While this is happening, let's save all the questions. I'll stay here after the session, so you can ask me as many questions as you want afterwards. So what happens on the AD mission is, DNS, okay. This is nothing special to VMM, but I want to show you anyway. So in DNS, in the domain that you are actually installing VMM as, there will be a identity created for the VMM service, which actually is not, which is why actually this was my backup VM cluster, but I'll work through it. What should have happened is there should have been identity here for the clustered VMM service. We'll see the effect of this when we try to failover. We won't be able to connect to the service, but failover will happen. We can connect to the machine anyway. That's what happens on AD. On the container side, on the container, this is what we do. We store keys in there. So if you are actually creating a new container, you would do a new object. I'm going to do this because it's still VM4. It's still installing. Let me drag it aside so we can keep track of what it's doing. So you would typically go create a container, give it a name, VMM test2. That's really pretty much it. Where is the container we created now? VMM test2. So this is what an AD admin or somebody else would have to do for you, and then give you the properties for this string, a distinguished name, which is what we use to actually write to that container. It's pretty much all there is. You don't need to, everybody probably already knows. On the SQL side, we create a database for VMM service. So that's pretty much it. Let's see if we have any more slides while this is installing. Once it's installed, I'll show you what I actually did in the first, when I actually came in, that I would fail over the VMM service from one node to another node. It wouldn't work, but I'll show you anyway. I will show you why it won't work. Oh, it's almost done. That's fine. Let's see what else we have. Oh, okay, good. There is a lot of community effort we are doing over the next 3 months. Carmen here is our customer PM. She's coordinating a bunch of sessions where individual PMs per each feature team kind of create a lab for you. So if you want to play a lot more, then this is a good place to learn everything about VMM really, for the most part. So there is a URL there. I think these slides are available for you offline, so you could get that URL from there. There are a few more. Most of the sessions are done, but there are 2 more, I think, tomorrow. You could attend them. And a few more resources for you. I think this deck will be available for you guys. So I'll take Q&A in a few minutes after we finish the demo part. Okay, so VMM is installed on the second node too. Good. Now, let me bring my second node here. The first node of the cluster onto the left top, so we can see both of them at the same time. So here is the deal. This is the cluster thing. So here is your VMM cluster. It's got two nodes. Here is where you can check. Cluster VM3 and cluster VM4 are part of this clustered service. Current owner is cluster VM3. So one thing that did not happen really well is what should have happened on DNS is there should have been a node for this clustered service, which didn't happen. I've got some, I'm not a DNS, maybe one of you actually knows why it didn't happen, but this is my environmental issue, that the clustered service did not register with the DNS. If it did, I would be able to directly talk to the clustered service, but because it did not, what I'm going to show you, cluster service still exists, except that I have to talk to the current node of this cluster. So if I show you, if I go back to, where is it? Clustered VM3, the current cluster node is VM3. So I have to actually, my VM console connection should go to that machine. I can't connect to the clustered name because it's not registered in DNS. I tried that, that doesn't work either for whatever reason. Yeah, I can talk to this machine's IP address, but yeah. This is already VM3, so I'll connect this machine directly, connect. And from the other VMM server, I will go ahead and connect to actually I can talk to the IP address of this machine, which is 10.2. Okay, 10.2.2.2 maybe. What was the default port? I don't want to change that. 8100. Okay, give it a second. Okay, VM has started up on this first node. One thing you can check is that in the Fabric node, if you go to VMM servers, you will see that both of these machines are added as VMM servers, which is good, which is what you want to see. Let's see. Let's try a couple of IPs. 10. What was it? 2.2.2. 2.2.2. Okay. If it won't recognize that, I'll actually use the machine name. I know it will use that. Okay. It recognizes that. Okay. So now you have actually VM server running as a HA service, and you're connecting from two different machines to the server. Now let's do failover, which is actually what you've done before. So let it connect to it. Once it connects, I'll fail it over. Come on. I can take any questions in the meantime. That's what I'm saying. I don't have that. In DNS, the clustered IP did not register. That might that might work. I tried that. We can check actually. I tried that before, 3 to 4 days before. For whatever reason, it didn't work. Yeah, we can try that. Clustered IP, I would think it would work, right? Yeah. First, let me fail it over. We can check that afterwards. Okay. Okay. Now I'm going to move it. So actually, what you want to check is right now VM3 is the parent node, or the current owner, you can fail it over to, it says, do you want to really move over? Yes. So you're seeing this connection will go off, and service is going down, it will come up. That's fine. This is an IPv6 address, which I don't have on all the host machines, which is why this failed, but that's fine. Okay. I'd be surprised if this works now, but because it did not register, and we are actually now connecting to 10 dot to this machine, and here you go. So current owner is VM4, so the service did fail over. This will fail because we are connecting to the old machine. We can now on this machine too, it will probably fail too because it's connecting to VM3, which is this same machine. I'm going to cancel this. Just to show that service is working, I'm going to connect to VM3. Now, we can do that here actually. Okay, I want to connect to, what is the machine name? Yes, VM4 is where the service currently is running. So, okay, IP address of that machine is (10.2.2.3). Yeah, weird. This is what you would think would work too, because I'm giving it the machine name. It wouldn't resolve to IP address, but I think this works. The other cluster I had actually showed you before, that doesn't have this problem. But this is only purely my lack of AD and DNS knowledge. So, okay, localhost. So there you go. It's connecting on this machine too, and it's currently running on this machine. So the best way to connect to it, or actually the easiest way, is localhost. There's your VMM service. Because specified would not be resolved. Local machine, did I mistype something? Local machine. Yeah. Local host, okay. Yeah, there you go. Okay. That's it. So, yeah, it connected from both of them. So really the service is fine, except I couldn't connect to it. Questions?
Active Directory, does it have to be Active Directory 2008 or
2008 or higher. Yeah. Yeah.
Are there any functional limitations to the software running? I know you're running SCDM inside.
Yes, I am actually running. So really, if you want more performance, you probably would do on a host machine, but I do it a lot of times. A lot of us, when we test internally in the house, we test with VMs all the time. So it is, you have already seen it, it is supported on VMs.
So am I losing any functionality by not having
Nope. Only thing is though, currently we do not let you add the host cluster as part of the VMM server if your VMM is running in the same host. So in this case, I couldn't do that. But if I create a different cluster, then it works fine.